Hey, all. Tom Novak here with Novak Weather. Just bringing you an update on the severe thunderstorm potential and probably even more importantly, the heavy rain potential over portions of southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin for this evening now, and then probably into the overnight hours. And we may even take a quick peek at the severe weather potential for tomorrow, which certainly looks fairly active and impressive for tomorrow afternoon and evening. Okay, hey, let's get to that situation that's developing right now over southern Minnesota. You're looking at the visible satellite loop. And here it is. Look at these clouds that have billowed up over extreme north central Iowa now, northwestern Iowa, and then now over southern Minnesota. I'm going to freeze this here on the last frame, and you can clearly see down near the I-90 corridor, which would be the Albert Lee, Austin, Minnesota area, stretching on up northeast right towards Rochester, Minnesota, some billowing clouds that continue to evolve and develop here. And I think that's going to be the case here for the next several hours over southern Minnesota. Hence the reason why thunderstorm activity is likely going to increase over southern Minnesota, especially from about Mankato on east through the Rochester area, Albert Lee, Austin here. As we get into the early evening hours, we've zoomed in now to northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. Now, there's a lot to look at here that's really important. First of all, look at these cumulus clouds that are slowly but surely moving north towards the Iowa-Minnesota border. That is a low-level jet now that is developing, and that's some warm, moist air right near and just south of the Minnesota-Iowa border. Again, that is starting to pull north into a warm front. You can clearly see it. There's a warm front right near the Minnesota-Iowa border as we speak, and that is where these storms are developing and then riding east and northeast along that warm front. I'll show you more in detail this warm front that is located near the Minnesota-Iowa border, but really an impressive looking visible satellite imagery now that is just starting to explode thunderstorms over southeastern Minnesota. Here's your infrared satellite loop measuring the cloud temperatures, the cloud tops. And here's the impressive area of storms that have moved through southwestern Minnesota and now are approaching south central and southeastern Minnesota. And if I put it on this last frame, it still doesn't look like much, but I think you're going to see an explosion of storms here over the next hour or two, which means I think the cloud tops are going to start to cool significantly over southern and southeastern Minnesota and portions of western Wisconsin here in the next couple of hours. But long story short, this is a thunderstorm complex here that continues to move east-northeast towards the rest of southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, northern Iowa, two portions of extreme northern Iowa. Here's your winds at about 20 to 25,000 feet. These are the forecasted winds at about 6 p.m. this evening. And look at this. We have just enough wind and some shear in the atmosphere with winds at about 40 to 50 knots near that warm front that is located right about here over southern Minnesota. Now, when we look at the lower level winds, these are the winds at about 5 to 7,000 feet. They're not that impressive, but still, you can see a low level jet now developing over Nebraska and Iowa and pushing or surging into southern Minnesota near that warm front. That will help trigger storms here over the next 3 to 6 hours. And we would look at CAPE, or which would be available potential energy in our atmosphere, especially in the lower layers of our atmosphere. But within our atmosphere, look at this Cape area right near the Minnesota and Iowa border, which is located right here, and some real impressive energy in the atmosphere near and just south of that warm front that again is slowly but surely going to be pushing north here, not only this evening but through the overnight and morning hours tomorrow. So yes, Cape is important for thunderstorm development, and it looks like we're going to have that. But probably most importantly now is the precipitable water values in our atmosphere. It's saturated out there, and this is the reason why I'm worried about heavy rains. More than anything this evening, I'm worried about more heavy rains over southern Minnesota because we have precipitable water values near in excess of 2 inches near that I-90 corridor here in southern Minnesota. And that's the moisture that these storms are going to be able to pull from here as they move east and northeast along that warm front throughout the evening. So that's a rather impressive scenario. And yes, when I'm going to put the satellite, this is the future satellite now, into motion from the rapid refresh guidance. And here it shows those storms over southern Minnesota redeveloping. And there it is, your timestamp. This is about 7 or 8 this evening. It shows these storms exploding again or redeveloping right over the Mankato, Rochester, Albert Lee, I-90 corridor, and then eventually probably even up into the Twin Cities here as we go through the later evening hours. Just a real active evening, I think, over southern Minnesota. And then we get a break, the way it appears, at least late tonight, overnight tonight. I think we're going to start to get a break here until tomorrow afternoon, when more significant thunderstorms are expected to develop. In fact, let's take a quick look at that. We're going to move to the north central portion of the United States here, and I'm going to put the rapid refresh guidance up here. Again, this is the 18 Zulu model run, and watch what happens now as we get into tomorrow. Look at, by the way, tomorrow morning, lots of thunderstorms over eastern North Dakota and northern Minnesota. And then I want you to focus on what's going to happen right down in this area here. This would be the Twin Cities, St. Cloud, Brainerd, Rochester, Mankato areas. As we get into the late morning and afternoon hours, watch how these storms explode along a cold front. The cold front will be located right about here tomorrow afternoon and evening. And as that cold front tries to push east into the warm, moist air over Minnesota and western Wisconsin, it's going to develop more thunderstorms. I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. We are tired of thunderstorms and heavy rains, but it looks like we're going to have another bout of it as we get into later tomorrow afternoon and evening, which means, yes, some more significant rains. Last but not least, here's your radar summary now from Twin Cities International. And look at Rochester. Rochester, you need to be prepared for some heavy rains here over the next 2 to 3 hours, as lightning strikes have become rather impressive down near Albert Lee. Oh, and a severe thunderstorm watch just issued by the Storm Prediction Center. So there it is. Perfect timing. Thanks, SPC. They're concerned about this area here, as am I, as we go through this late afternoon or now evening hours, as it looks like the likelihood of some severe thunderstorm activity, and again, more importantly, some torrential rains, I think, over the next 3 to 6 hours, probably through at least midnight. Let's just see how long this watch is going to be issued for here. It expires in about 7 hours. So yes, till midnight, it appears, is when this watch will finally expire. So get ready for a fairly long evening here near the I-90 corridor in Minnesota and then extending south into Iowa. Hey, wanted to thank Root River Tree Services, my buddy Sam Mayday Malone there, for sponsoring this video update. You know, there's been some tree damage in southeastern Minnesota, especially in the Rochester area here over the last 24 hours. So if you've got some damage to trees, you just need your yard to get cleaned up or trimmed up when it comes to branches and trees, give my buddy Sam Mayday Malone a call. He'll help you out at Root River Tree Service. All right, there you go, everyone. Thanks for joining me, and just get ready for an active 24 to 36 hours.